Alright, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to drive stick shift. It's kind of, nowadays basically a lost art, and not too many people know how to drive stick shift anymore, at least people my age. I'm only 18 years old, but a lot of people don't really know how to drive stick shift, and the thing is that I think it's really an art, and it adds so much fun to the driving experience. And now with automatics, it's so carefree, it's so easy that people don't care about driving stick shift. But I do think it's definitely a valuable skill to have. It's very important to have if you ever are stuck in a situation and you need to drive a friend's car, or if the only car is available to drive and you need to go to the hospital, like something like that. It's always handy to have the skill of driving a stick shift. And yeah, it's just very important in my opinion. And also, guys, it's pretty cool. If you have some girls in the car in the back seat or something like that, and you can bang the gears. No, I'm just kidding, guys. But yeah, so we'll jump on straight into this, and I hope you guys learn something new and learn how to drive stick shift. Alright, so guys, you guys probably know stick shifts are much less common now, and they're really only in sports and muscle cars. And the thing is, if you're driving a stick shift, probably 75% chance, or 75% of the time, it's going to be a fast car, a muscle car, a sports car, or something like that. But the other 25% is left for the normal cars, like sedans, stuff like that, that are stick shift. And it doesn't always have to be a coupe or a fast car. It could just be any stick shift car. And a lot of trucks are still, or not a lot of trucks, but there's still trucks that are stick shift. There's sedans that are stick shift. There's SUVs that are stick shift. And yeah, it's just, there's many different cars that are stick shift. But today, the car that we're going to be driving, as you guys may see by the Mustang logo, is a 2003 Mustang Mach 1. Just to tell you guys this, a few facts about the car, just so you guys know. It's 350 horsepower, 350 pounds of torque, about even on both of those, not exactly. So it's a pretty fast car. It has a short throw shifter, so that's one of the things that we're going to have to talk about today. And yeah, and then it's also a very stiff clutch, as you guys, well, you guys can't really tell, but it's a very stiff clutch. It's something that you have to get used to, and that's all stuff we're going to be talking about later on in the video. Alright, guys, so with that all out of the way, some of you may have skipped all that, but regardless, with that all out of the way, we're going to start teaching you guys how to drive stick shift. And what I recommend doing is starting on a very flat surface, the flattest surface you can find. Most surfaces are pretty flat, like a road, it's pretty flat, but I would recommend not starting on an incline or decline, because that's going to be very hard to get the hang of, and it can kind of throw you off. If you learn on an incline, then it might be harder for you to start, or you might over rev it if you're on a flat surface. So I would recommend starting on a flat surface and learning from there. And you can either do this in an empty parking lot, that's what a lot of people say, but I also believe that you can do it in a neighborhood. Depending on how busy your neighborhood is, if there's people always behind you, driving right behind you, you probably should find an empty parking lot that's a decent size. But otherwise, you can just do it in your neighborhood. That's how I learned, and it works really well for me. So anyways, without further ado, let's get on to teaching you guys how to drive stick shift. Alright, so the first thing you're gonna notice when you start driving stick is the clutch in your car. Now, there's many different types of clutches, or not types of clutches, there's basically just mechanical and hydraulic clutches. And the thing is, with hydraulic clutch, it's gonna be very loose, I guess you could say, or very non-resistant. So in a newer car, mainly newer cars have hydraulic clutches, and what's going to happen is you're going to push in the clutch and you're barely going to feel it, okay? Like in a new Mustang, you're barely going to feel yourself pushing the clutch. Now with an older clutch like this, where I think it's called mechanical, I'm pretty sure, and it's going to be a lot stiffer because it's directly connected to the clutch, and you're pushing that pressure plate onto the clutch disc. And so this one is very stiff, okay? The Mach 1 has a very stiff clutch because it's a performance car, and it's meant for like dumping the clutch or starting from a stop and accelerating very fast, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But so that's what you're going to notice right away, is how stiff your clutch is. Some of you guys that have never drove stick shift might just think it's normal, but there is definitely a wide range of how stiff a clutch can be. And then the other thing I was talking about before is whether it's a 5-speed or a 6-speed. Now these are the standard ones. Pretty much performance cars will have 5 and 6, but then like the really high performance cars, like a Corvette Stingray or like a GTR, well, a GTR is automatic, but just a high performance car will have definitely a higher gears and stuff like that. So yeah, those are the two things you're probably going to notice right away. And I'm sorry I keep looking down, I have this all written down, so I make sure I get this all for you guys. So the first thing when you're about to start driving stick shift that I definitely recommend doing is rolling down both your windows. Now I also recommend turning the radio off, just so that you can hear the engine and there's no background noise distracting you from the engine, because what you're going to want to do is listen to the engine, and based off what the engine sounds like, that can help you control the car and start getting off to a start, which is the biggest or the hardest thing that people that are new to driving stick shift struggle with, is starting from a stop to going. Shifting, yes, it's hard hard and difficult, but the hardest thing is starting from a stop and then continuing to go, or starting to go. And yeah, that's definitely the hardest thing. So I recommend turning the radio off and rolling the windows down so that you can hear the engine and there's no background noise. So now I'm going to teach you guys how to start the car. I actually just turned it off again. But basically, you're just going to put the key in like a normal car. But the thing is, when you turn the key, it's not going to start. Because the thing is, you have to put your foot on the clutch to press it all the way. Then you can turn the key, and the car will start. You cannot start a manual car without pushing in the clutch. That's just how it is. And yeah, so always remember to push in the clutch. If you're thinking your car's dead or something, don't worry, just push in the clutch, and hopefully it's not actually dead. Now, while your foot is still depressed on the clutch, what you're gonna wanna do is make sure you're in neutral. Then from there, you can let go of the clutch, or you can put it in first gear and start accelerating. It depends on what you wanna do. But yeah, you're gonna wanna make sure you're always in neutral when you let out the clutch, unless you're driving. Now, a big tip that I have for you guys for finding out where the catch point, which the catch point is when the clutch starts grabbing and you start kind of moving, because the car will move a tiny bit by itself without you giving it gas. And that's what you have to do is I'll just start telling you guys now, the clutch is pushed in, then you're gonna start giving it gas, and while you're giving it gas, you're gonna let out the clutch, and it's all about finding a perfect balance. If the clutch is coming out and the car starts dying, that means you have to give it more gas or push the clutch a little bit in, or if the car starts over revving, you have to let off the gas or let the clutch out faster. It just really depends. So that's why I recommend having your windows down, as I said before, so that you can hear this, because in a car like this that's very well isolated, or insulated I should say, you can't really hear the car that well. Even though this one has a monster exhaust on it, you won't always be able to hear the car too well, especially if you're in like a sedan that's not meant for performance or sounding cool. You're gonna want to have the windows down so you can hear as much as possible. So now if you're ready to go, you're gonna put the e-brake down, you're gonna press this button and actually put the e-brake down, and now you're pretty much ready to go, besides that you're in neutral. So you can still let the clutch out with the e-brake. If you let go of the brake, as you can see, we're rolling back a little bit. So what you're gonna want to do is hold the brake if you're on a hill, but we're starting on a flat surface, so we actually don't need to hold the brake. So now the clutch is in, we're gonna put it to the left and up. That's gonna be first gear. Depends on the car you're just gonna want to look at this little diagram right here, and that will show you where all the gears are in reverses, which we'll talk about reverse in a little bit. Now that you're in first gear, what you're gonna want to do, make sure the wheel's straight, make sure you're heading straight, not into a ditch or anything, and you're gonna start doing what I told you. But one thing I actually forgot to say is that when you want to let out the clutch, if you want to feel where the catch point is, you can start letting it out and just slowly let it, and as you can see, we're moving a little bit. So I'll let the clutch out, I'm not giving it any gas. We'll start moving, and the car starts shaking. That's because the clutch isn't getting enough power to it, or the transmission isn't getting enough power, and the car's gonna stall. So that's what happens is when you don't give it enough gas, the car will stall. And that's why you're just gonna keep practicing, let off the brake, just keep letting go of the clutch very slowly, and the car will start to move, and as you guys can hear, maybe the car was about to die. So you're just gonna keep letting out very, very slowly, finding where that catch point is. And once you figure out where the catch point is and you kind of muscle memory or remember where the clutch point is and where the clutch starts engaging, then you can start giving it gas. So that's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna put our foot on the clutch. We're gonna put our foot on the right foot on the gas, left foot on the clutch. We're starting out the clutch, start giving it gas. And as you guys can see, we're off to a start. Now you can keep doing this, and the thing that I would do is just push back in the clutch, hit the brake, and stop. And once you're stopped, you can do it again. You can start letting out the clutch, start giving it gas, and as you guys can see, we're off to a start again. There's many different ways to go about trying to remember this. Basically, the best way is just feeling out the clutch. You know, you're gonna want to feel where it starts. And as I said, guys, if it starts getting too quiet, give it more gas or push in the clutch. Or if it starts getting too loud, like it's like over revving, where you're like, wait, this is really loud for how slow we're going, then you're gonna want to let off the gas or let out the clutch more. It just depends. And as you guys can see here, I'll roll down the windows here so you guys can see, or hear. So now that we're back stopped, I just really recommend just feeling out the car. You know, it's not gonna be an instant thing where you completely feel exactly how much gas you have to give it, how slow you have to let out the clutch. But the tip that I will give you guys is to let out the clutch slower than you think. Because the biggest problem that I had, which I had a very hard time learning how to drive stick about a year ago, was that I would let out the clutch way too fast, and I would not be giving enough gas. I mean, I could have given it more gas, but the best way to do this is give it a decent amount of gas, but then let out the clutch slow. I mean, you could burn out your clutch doing this, but it's very unlikely. Clutches nowadays are very sophisticated, and they're they're not going to burn out unless you're literally revving it to the top of the RPM and letting the clutch out about halfway. So if you slowly let out the clutch, continue to let it out while giving it gas, you should be able to start going. And it's really just, as I said a couple times now, about feeling out the car and feeling what you have to do. And I do recommend trying this. If you have a stick shift car, most likely you're with someone that can drive stick shift. And when you're driving with them, I recommend doing it with them so that they can teach you or show you like what to do, because it's always going to help driving with someone that knows how to drive stick shift. And one thing that I wanted to say is that you guys just can't get upset, okay? Don't get frustrated. Don't think that you're the worst stick shift driver in the world and that everyone that drives stick shift just started out and was amazing, okay? No one is really amazing at stick shift when they first start. It's a very complicated and very, it's just complicated, okay? It's just a very hard thing to do, and it's definitely muscle memory and stuff like that, so you have to train your muscles and your mind to know what to do in certain situations, and that's when you're gonna do it. No one can just get in a car and drive stick shift. No one in the world can. So don't get frustrated, guys. Alright guys, so we're gonna start up again. We're gonna put her in first gear and we're just gonna start rolling, okay? Now that we're rolling, what you're gonna wanna do is shift, okay? Now we could continue to drive at 1500 RPMs and just go very slow like this, but the thing is, if we were at 6,000 to 7,000 RPMs, we'd probably only be going like 14 miles an hour. So what you're gonna wanna do is shift. And once you shift, then it's gonna allow you to maintain the same RPMs, but go on a higher speed, as I was teaching you guys before. So now we're in second gear. Now we can continue going, shift into third gear. And as you guys can see, I'm shifting very slow. When you're on a relaxed day drive, you don't have, or you're going to Walmart or the Jewel or somewhere that you're going, you don't have to shift very fast. You know, a lot of people think you have to shift fast and bang gears and stuff like that, but you really don't. All you have to do is simply push in the clutch, pull it down, or whatever gear you're going into, let out the clutch and continue driving. Now, when you're upshifting, you do want to match the gas. It's not downshifting, or rev matching, I should say. It's not rev matching, but what you're gonna want to do when you're upshifting is give it a little bit of gas. You don't have to do this at first, honestly, but at the beginning, you don't have to do this. But once you're getting more advanced, you're gonna want to give it a little bit of gas and then let the clutch out. And it only takes a little bit, because if you don't give that little bit of gas, what's gonna happen is the clutch is gonna, or the whole car is gonna start shaking. And that's just not something you wanna do. And so yeah, that's that. So one thing I forgot to say that I do highly recommend is to play around with the shifter, okay? Now look at your diagram, see where each gear is, and what you're gonna wanna do is put it into first. Okay, so first is usually up and to the left, okay? Then straight down from there is second gear. Then up and to the right is third gear. Down from there is fourth, and then up to the right is fifth, and then if you go down again, that would be reverse, or that could be sixth gear, depending on your car. And then if you have a 6-speed transmission, then you can push it to the left, all the way to the left, like way to the left. Maybe sometimes you even pull up a lever, and then you can put it into reverse. And it just depends on your transmission. That's just unique to each car. But yeah, so you're gonna want to play around with this. You know, you can even do it fast or do it slow. You can put it into first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and just play around with it. This car, fifth gear, is pretty hard to find. And as I said, this is the short throw shifter. So as you guys can tell, my hand isn't moving that much. Like, this is the whole neutral range, and then first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. You can see my hand's barely moving. And that's the thing about short throw shifters. Most cars don't have them. Most cars will have a standard shifter where the shift gear, or the gears are pretty spread out, and the slots for each shift or each gear is pretty spread out. So it's not gonna be too hard, but if you're learning on a short throw shifter, just keep that in mind. So basically, if you guys can go from a stop to a start, you can shift, okay? All you have to do for shifting is either shift at a low RPM, and that will save gas, because then you're not going to be burning as much fuel, which, yes, that's what happens in an engine. The engine combusts and the fuel combusts and burns that and creates power. But if you shift at a low RPM, like maybe 1500 RPMs, you're going to save a lot of gas, because you're not going to be going to those high RPMs. Now, if you want to accelerate fast, then you're going to want to shift later, okay? It just really depends on what you're trying to do, because if you're shifting early, you're going to save a lot of gas, as I said. Now, if you want to accelerate and race some guy at a stoplight, then what you're going to want to do is shift pretty late. And it just depends on how fast you want to go, but it should really find the mix. Like here, I'm at 2,500 RPMs, 3,000, shift down in a second. And all you have to do to shift, guys, is push in the clutch all the way. Make sure you get it in all the way, like this. So now it's all the way in. Put it into whatever you're going into. In this case, we're going to third. Give it a little bit of gas and let out the clutch. And that's as simple as it gets, guys. That is all you have to do to shift. It's not some complicated thing. The most complicated part of driving stick shift is two things: downshifting, which I'll explain to you in a little bit, and starting from a stop. And if you guys are at this point, you're probably already getting down to starting from a stop if you're watching this video like on your phone in your car, which don't do that while you're driving, guys. yeah, that's what you have to do to shift. It's very easy. As you guys can see here, I'll accelerate, I'll get to maybe 2,000 RPMs, push in the clutch, pull into fourth, give it a little bit of gas, let the clutch out. That's all you got to do, guys. It's as simple as that. It's a very easy process. It's definitely a lot easier than starting from a stop. Alright guys, so now we're going to talk about stopping. Probably the most important part and one of the more complicated parts of driving stick shift. Not too complicated, but there's definitely a couple ways of doing this. Now, for all the speed that you gain and how fast you go, and if you have a sweet fast car, you're going to go super fast, but you're always going to have to stop. So what you're going to want to do for stopping, as you can see right here, is push into the clutch, push the clutch all the way down, and throw it into neutral. Now, if you're coming to a stop, what you can do is just come to a complete stop, and then if you're at a light, you can just leave it in neutral and let the clutch out like that. So if you're at a light, a red light, yeah, and you're stopping and it turns yellow, you stop, you push in the clutch, you start slowing down, hitting the brake, you put it in neutral, then from there, you can keep, oh, someone's coming behind me, but from there, you can actually push in the clutch, then start braking, and then just, what you're gonna wanna do, as I said, push in the clutch, start braking, with the clutch still depressed, you're braking, then you can put it into neutral, still holding the clutch though, and then come to a stop. So we'll do that right up here. That's how I get around this corner here. Don't want to stop in the middle of the corner. So we're gonna push in the clutch here. We're gonna put our foot on the brake, take our foot off the gas, put it on the brake, start stopping. We're gonna have it in neutral, which I should have done a little bit ago. And then we're gonna come to a stop. Now, if you're at a light, you can keep it in neutral. I would recommend jiggling it around like this to make sure it's still in neutral. Then you can let out the clutch and just relax. You can hold your foot on the brake if you're on an incline or decline. And then yeah, you can just sit there. And then once it's time to go, as we said before, push in the clutch, put it in first gear, light turns green, and you're off, okay? It's as simple as that, guys. And as you know, pull it down to second gear, shift, keep going, pull it, put it into third gear, shift, push in the clutch, fourth gear, shift, and we're off, okay? It's as simple as that, guys. Now, as I said before, it can be a complicated process, but in the end, it's pretty simple. I mean, the clutch mechanism, it's complicated, but what you have to do to achieve the clutch mechanism or make it work is very simple. All you gotta do is push in the clutch, or put your foot on the gas, or put your foot on the brake. There's 3 pedals. They can't get much simpler than that, guys. Now, there's also matching and everything like that, but that's something that we'll talk about in a little bit. And yeah. Now, another way that you can stop is when you're in, say, okay, let's say we're in third gear, okay? We're in third gear right now. You're coming to a stop. You push in the clutch. Then you can actually pull it down into first gear if you know you're gonna start going right there. Say you're making a right on red, you can put it down to first gear, which some transmissions, if you're going too fast for that gear, won't let you do it, or they'll make it very hard. In this car, I can put it into first gear at almost any speed, you know, below 60, but it's gonna be very hard to higher the speed. So say you're going in third gear, you're at an appropriate speed to put it down into first, or even not an appropriate speed, but if you just wanna start going once you stop, put it into first, come to a stop, and then just let off the brake, give it some gas, and start going again, okay? It's as simple as that, guys. And as I said, it's just a very simple process. All right, guys, now for one of the most complicated parts of driving stick. It's not the funnest thing, but it's definitely something that everyone has to learn, and that is downshifting. What I just did right there, actually. When you go around the turn, you can't turn around the turn unless you have massive amounts of torque. You can't go around a turn in 5th gear, okay? You have to shift to the appropriate gear for the speed that you're going around the corner in. So say, we just talked about stopping, right? Now say you're not stopping, but you're slowing down and then continuing. So say a car's turning right, you have to slow down to maybe 20 miles an hour, then continue. What that's called is downshifting, okay? It's just like upshifting, but it's going in reverse. It's just going in reverse order, and what you have to do when you downshift sometimes is called rev matching. And rev matching is basically when you match the RPMs with how fast the gear is gonna start going when you let the clutch out. So as you guys should understand kind of what I'm saying. It's kind of difficult to explain, but we kind of explained it earlier a little bit. But basically, say we're going this fast, okay? Now I'm gonna shift down into 2nd gear, and you guys are gonna see what happens if I don't give it gas. Then we'll shift down into 2nd gear and let the clutch out. As you guys can see, we get a lot more RPMs, and that's called, what we have to do in that situation, which what we didn't just do, is called rev matching. You have to give it enough gas so it's an easier transmission or an easier transition for the clutch to engage. So basically, we're gonna do this. We're gonna be going, right now we're in 3rd gear. You know, let's put it into 4th gear. Let's cruise a little bit. Let's go going up to about 35 miles an hour. Now we're gonna put it into 3rd gear, and we're gonna rev match. We'll put it into 3rd gear, give it some gas, and as you guys can see, that was much more smooth of the transmission. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It was much more smooth of a transition rather than just letting the clutch right out, and then it would be a very harsh and kind of like pull you forward thing. But if you give it gas, that's called rev matching, and that's gonna allow you to kind of let the car slow down in a much easier fashion and not just kind of pull you forward really hard. Because as you guys can see again here, we'll shift down to the first gear, put it in first, and this is going to be violent, guys. We'll just let the clutch out. And as you guys can see, it's going to pull really hard. So it's going to pull back on us, and it's not going to want to shift in that gear without you giving it gas. So that's what downshifting is. Basically, it's just like letting out the clutch in a higher, or when you're stopped, but basically, you're just going to have to feel it out. You're going to have to feel, generally, if you're shifting into a lower gear at a higher speed, you're going to want to give it more gas, because that's going to be shifting into a low gear at that very high speed, and it's going to raise those RPMs. So you're going to want to match it and basically give it the RPMs that it wants. And if you're shifting, say, from third gear to first gear, you're going to have to give it a lot of gas, guys. Now, if you're shifting from fifth gear to fourth gear, you're only going to have to give it a little bit of gas while you're letting the clutch out. And it's just all about finding a balance, as I said. A lot of driving stick shift is just finding the best way to do things and just feeling out the car. Every single car that's stick shift is different. Now, even some models that are the exact same are different. Now, a 2003 Mach 1 may be different than another 2003 Mach 1. It's just the smallest differences can make a big, the smallest like imperfections or whatever it may be can make a big difference in how the car feels. So you're just gonna have to feel out the car. All right, guys, so the last thing I'm gonna teach you guys about is going down or up a hill. Now, what I recommend doing is making sure that, like you just saw, you can let the clutch out relatively fast while giving it, of course, enough gas, so that, because if you start going on a hill when you can't let the clutch out fast, you're just gonna stall. Because the thing about hills is, and a stick shift car, is they don't mix together, okay? Because what happens is when you let go of that brake and you have the clutch in and you're not giving any gas, the car's gonna roll right backwards, and if there's someone behind you, you're gonna hit them, okay? And it's gonna probably be your fault. So what you're gonna wanna do is learn how to drive or let out the clutch pretty fast. And because when you first start, you're gonna be letting the clutch out very slow, giving it a little bit of gas. The car's gonna start inching forward. Once you master it, you're gonna be able to just start going, like from a light. You're just gonna start going, and you're gonna be able to accelerate pretty fast. And that's what you're gonna want to master before you start driving on hills. Because if you don't, then as I said, you're gonna stall, or you're either gonna stall or you're gonna roll right back into that car behind you if you're letting it out too slow. So that's one thing you want to learn. I don't have a hill to represent this for you guys on, but it's really just about feeling out and letting the clutch out fast. And once you have that down, you're good to go. All right, guys, so if you're driving a fast car, the whole reason you probably wanted to learn how to drive stick shift was to go fast in the car, because obviously if you have a fast car, you're going to want to go fast in it. So shifting fast is definitely something that's a little bit harder than normal shifting, but once you get down shifting, you can start practicing shifting fast. It's probably going to be a rough transition at first, because you're gonna want to just let the clutch out real fast and not rev mat or give it gas or anything. And it's just hard. It's about finding that balance, of course. And I'm trying to get an opening here so I can give you guys a little bit of a power sample. And I'll give you guys one right now. You can see what's like to shift fast. Woo! Okay, so as you guys can see, shifting fast is definitely something that you have to acquire that skill, but if you can drive stick shift, you can shift fast. It's just it might not be the most smoothest, but basically it's the exact same as driving a normal car, which what you have to do differently is, or driving a normal stick shift car, but what you have to do differently is just do it faster, okay? And that's where the skill comes in, is because you're gonna have to learn how to push the clutch, shift, let the clutch out real fast while giving it the gas that you need. And it's definitely just something that you have to learn how to do. But once you can do it, guys, it is a thrilling experience. I definitely recommend learning how to bang gears and drive fast, because it's definitely something that is an art and something that's very fun to do, especially if you have a fast car. All right, guys, so for parking, all you have to do, put it in neutral, baby, roll up to where you want to park, press the brake, pull the handbrake, make sure you're in neutral. Again, I always check twice, and then you can let out the clutch and your car will stop right where you need it to stop. And a couple people like to put it in first gear once the car is off, and that's just another strategy of stopping it. I personally always just pull the e-brake, and that's all I do. I don't ever put it in first gear. But yeah, and then the final thing is reverse is the exact same as first gear. You just put it into reverse and just let the clutch out, give it gas. It's just like first gear, except that you're going in reverse. Okay, it's the exact same, and obviously you have to look behind you or in your rear view mirrors or whatever. But yeah, guys, that is basically how to drive stick shift. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope it wasn't too short. I hope it was perfect for you guys. And I know I might sound like a little weird that coming from an 18-year-old, how to drive stick shift, and you might want to hear it from more of a veteran. But I do think I have a good grasp on things, and I hope I taught it to you guys okay. And I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you want to subscribe, you can. If you want to like the video, you can. Share it with your friends that need to drive stick shift or want to drive stick shift, you can. And that is all I got for you guys today. I hope you did enjoy this, and I will see you guys later.